Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and today is Friday, May 7th, end of week. So, first week of May in the books. A pretty crazy week, right? A lot of earnings reports, a lot of price action. I'm going to go over the whole week's performance so far. What went up, what went down, what went sideways, where there was some really good performance. So we're going to go through all of that. I'll talk about how I'm doing so far this month. And before we get into any of that, risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through here is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice, recommendations. Everything that we're going through is for education purposes only. If the screen is fuzzy, it is because YouTube takes an awful long time to render the high def vision version of the video. So just hang in there, close the video, reopen it a little bit, and it should be rendered fully. So let's get to that performance first for the day. We'll talk about the performance for the day. S&P finished up almost 0.75%. The Qs finished up about the same, a little bit over, but I guess about 80 basis points. So nice to see the Qs bounce back. Where the big outperformance was in the small caps today, up 1.3% for the day. And where did the diamonds finish today? They also finished up about the same as SPY as well. You had the VIX really get crushed kind of going into the weekend. Remember, just what was it? Was it yesterday or two? No, it was 2 days ago, uh, where the VIX hit a high like 20, almost 2050, and we finished at 17. So that's pretty amazing, right? To see that transpire that quickly, and sometimes we do get what I refer to as bouts of volatility, right? Let me make sure that day was correct because I do sometimes mix up my days. I guess it was actually on Tuesday sorry, that's wrong. That was Thursday where we almost hit 2050. It was Tuesday where we hit 21, I guess 21, like right around 20, 21.78, almost 22, and then a complete reversal of that. So again, that's what I refer to as a bout of volatility, BOUT, and the market does that from time to time. Different places, different times. The market gets upset at different things, but a very quick reversal in that volatility back to the downside, and you could see that on my spreadsheet, down 9% for the day, the VIX. Bonds, we'll talk about those bonds, and yeah, I guess we could talk about those bonds in a second, but actually finished down on the day. So let's talk a little bit about that jobs report that is, got a lot of attention today, through some people. Why can't I go back? There we go. It's been a long day. It's been a long week. These big earnings weeks always tire me out a little bit. But you know, this jobs report. First of all, one report is not a trend. Just like when we talk about in the technicals, when we see one day is not a trend. 1 month is not a trend either. But I mean, pretty astounding. Um, I don't know if this was really classified, if they really, if or if somebody really dug into the to the nitty gritty in this report. But it seems to me, I'm guessing that probably some people don't want to go back to work yet. There's still, there's still stimulus money, unemployment benefits, because you look at some businesses, and McDonald's isn't obviously the whole economy, but you hear that McDonald's has a shortage of workers right now. So it's kind of seems like a very noisy report. When you hear things like that, right? And I've heard this in other companies too, where they're having difficulty hiring, because there's a shortage of workers. People don't want to do, I guess, certain jobs, or maybe they require a certain amount of training. But in any event, we'll see how that kind of changes. But that's was really a light number, and there was a knee-jerk reaction in things that, this right now, bad news, a weaker jobs report is kind of perceived as good news for stocks, because that we know that at some time on the horizon, we don't know if it's the near-term horizon or the distant horizon, they're going to be, tackling this issue. I would assume, and I think that's what everybody is thinking at some point. Right, where is this thing? The Fed balance sheet. Right, so they've been buying a certain amount of bonds every month, And at some point, they're probably going to have to say, we're not going to do that anymore because the economy is getting better. Now, how much of a leash, right? I think what I heard a little bit today was that Powell wants like 2 really good months in a row. So that kind of maybe buys some time, even though I think everybody is seeing inflation all over the place. So we're just going to have to see how that goes. But will they actually start to kind of bring this balance sheet down a little bit? So that's kind of the thoughts. When you have a bad jobs report that doesn't meet Powell's criteria right now of a couple strong jobs gains in a month, so maybe it puts that out bay for a little bit. But it seems like it's going to be kind of postponing the inevitable. And I think that's why we saw this move in bonds today, right? So bonds were up like 1%. And again, I'm looking at the long end of the curve, right? So I'm looking at the 30-year bond either in bond futures or looking at TLT. And notice that this came down pretty hard after that initial jobs report. And sometimes we see that with these economic reports. Gold, it was another big mover. Now, I did take a small trade in GDX yesterday. Not a big trade by any means, just something to participate, because sometimes when these gold miners get going, they could really get going. So this GDX is at an interesting spot. You could basically say very easily here that hey, I'm going to go long GDX versus the 200-day moving average, right? That is a very easy trade setup. And if you're a little bit worried, like I am, trading the gold miners, because I think the gold miners are generally a tough trade. It's very whippy. You see sometimes false moves, but this got over the 200-day moving average, and you could say, hey, I'll go long here. And if it breaks back below the 200-day moving average, which basically can define the trend, right? Above the 200-day moving average, uptrend. Below the 200-day moving average, downtrend. And, that's one way to kind of play this move in gold. Now, if it could stay above here, your really next big area of resistance is up about 41.82, right? And that would be somewhere in here. So now, obviously, there's another extension away from this value area, which would be 39. But we did see some positioning in options for long GDX. So yeah, so that's another like area to possibly explore for a trade. I got out of most of my trade that I was in for GDX because I was literally just looking for a quick move. And then I kind of started to think about it today and say, hey, well, maybe this is the start of something here in gold. So something to keep an eye on, and something for me to possibly think about adding next week. Silver also up on the day as well. All right, so let's just go over the indices really quick, because I always like to start with the indices. But out to new highs, right? Very very strong. This market has been very strong, and you might share that opinion if you've been in the right areas of the market. If you've been in the weaker areas of the market, you might think so that much. But we started the week with the TTG macro video, and my thought was that the diamonds, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, only 30 stocks. I thought this looked the best going into this week, and it did do very well. It broke out of this. It didn't have much chop either, and has broken out to the upside. Now, one of the things that I've talked about in a couple of these videos this week is that we did kind of, this price action was challenged for the most part of the day, and once we broke through value, we really broke through value, and that's sometimes how it goes. When you challenge a resistance level like we did, bottom of value, for a couple of days this week, once you power through it, it's like you're breaking a barrier, right? And something that was holding the market back. Once it goes, and that's kind of what we saw. Let's just go over the Qs chart really quick. All right, the Qs kind of stalled out a little bit. Again, positive day, but was just tough. Tough to kind of get past that initial bounce. The level to watch. Let me just turn on the levels here so that you can see these on our MarketWebs indicator. But the level to watch next week, notice that we did not close inside value for the month. 334 334.80. All right, and we'll look at IWM too. All right, which also looks decent. May touch bottom of value. Again, big difference. If we start to talk about growth versus value, this is what IWO small cap growth looks like, and this is what IWN small cap value looks like. To me, pretty night and day difference between one versus the other. One is strong and trending, and the other one is a bit choppy and looks a bit weak to me. Right, so big difference between those two when you break them apart. And again, that's IWM uptrending. IWO, we don't know. It is sitting below value, but you put the two of them together, and you have IWM right in the middle of the value area. So again, a lot of cross currents going on in that 2,000 name index. All right, so so I always have this sheet at the end of the day that we look at. And I sort it by not the change for the day, but I sort it by the percent change, because especially on a day like this, when a lot of things gapped up on that jobs report, I want to see where the follow through is, right? I want to see if those names are going to continue to carry some of the names that started the strongest, or if there's going to be some other outperformance. And really, even though that jobs report kind of lifted the growth names, there wasn't really much follow through. And I kept looking. I had my names that I wanted to watch, because it is difficult on a gap up. Once things gap up $3 or $4, you have to see if they're going to follow through and be up another $3 or $4. So for example, what I'm referring to is like an SE. That's one of my go-to names in growth land. And this thing finished barely positive for the day, after going up. So that to me tells me, while I've been more positioned this week and had a really good week in terms of positioning in things like materials, right, and multiple areas in materials, right, a lot of steel names as well as chemical companies. I've also had a position on in energy. I had a position on in some retail like TGX, which had a really good day today. I've been positioned in financials, so I had a pretty decent week. But I'm monitoring for if that decides to change. Right, one of the things that we thought, we saw the financials down big on the open, right, because of that move in bonds. And, like a name like JP Morgan was getting, hit pretty hard on that report at 8 o'clock. Excuse me, at 8:30. Right, but look at what it did. Right, so that to me is, when a name gets hit or a group of stocks get hit, right, you want to know if the buyers are going to come back or if it's really a change in trend. So this got hit. This was not a change in trend. The buyers returned back here. One of the comparisons that I made, which I get a lot of questions about, is Pinterest. Right? We talked about how in Pinterest, for example, growth name, right? It got hit all the way back here, right, on 416. All right, some broker, Cleveland Research, downgraded it, and the stock fell like this, and there was no interest in the name. Right, so do you see the difference? Of kind of, this is just a little bit of background in trading, right? You want to see when something gets a dip, whether it's a bad reaction to a jobs report, whether it's a broker report. You want to see if buyers are going to basically come in and scoop that name up on discount. We never really saw that with pins. This is a name that I get questions about all the time in the trading room. And on this particular day, I said, I don't like how this thing is closing. There's no interest from the buyers, meaning the big buyers, right? The institutions. And this name really never got back to seeing buyers come back into it. And then it had this report, hit on the report, and buyers are still not back into it. So the questions that I get all the time when this happens from retail investors is, hey, what do you think of this name now? Is this a buying opportunity? And my response is just kind of like this, is we have not really seen any interest from the institutional funds even though it's gone down from $83 to $60. That should tell you something, right? So regardless of how much I like it or another retail individual investor likes it, the ones who are going to drive this stock back up are the institutions. And right now, it doesn't look like they have any interest in this thing yet. So while it's at an interesting point, 200-day moving average, VPOC was taken out. It's at a potential bounce area, but look at the volume, right? Do you see any accumulation down here? Right? So I'm just going over one example in growth, but I think this is very symbolic of a bunch of names in this group. You got to see volume come back into the name, and buyers funds support this name. Not seeing that yet, right? So I hope that makes some sense on on a difference between what happened today and a name like J.P. Morgan, where hey, you got to dip in this thing and look at the buyers come right back into it. That's what you want to see in a Pinterest or a Zillow or Roku. Right? What did Roku do today? But again, see the volume, right? Some people are interested in it, meaning fund. When I say people, it's funds. But look at this thing, right? Roku, great day, up 11%. But I don't know, is that convincing you that buyers are stepping back in, or were the people who were long taking advantage of taking advantage of the pop to sell? And I think it's the latter of the case. I think people took advantage and said, sorry, not took advantage, but yeah, I guess that is right. Took advantage of the pop and said, hey, I'm going to get out of this thing. Right, here's my get out of free jail card. Right, so these are the things that when I talk about monitoring, where I've made a lot of money this week in more of those, energy, materials, financials, industrials. I'm still going to monitor these things. I'm not going to turn my back completely to growth. I'm going to continue to monitor it. But if it's not giving me a signal, right, and price going down is not a signal. Right, we want to see some type of signal, meaning support is holding and volume, buyers are coming back into the name. Okay, because there's a lot of personal judgment out there, thinking, and I've seen this a lot over the last year, where people are sticking out their neck saying, "Oh, this name is cheap relative to where it was." That, in my opinion, is not the best analysis to be doing. Right, you don't know how cheap things could get. And you got to see the institutions come back in. Okay, so that's kind of my my thoughts on that. Let's go over some. Let's go over some of the fun things, that we've been talking about this week. Right, Dow Chemical, boom, out to new highs. Mosaic, look at the candle on Mosaic, and again, you're going to see this in a lot of names. Now, the difference here, names that sold off on earnings, like Mosaic. Right? Here's the before earnings, and this is what it did the day of earnings. Look at the difference in volume. Look at the buying going on. Right? That's what you want to see. So sometimes you have to cover up the symbol, right? Because everybody is super opinionated about, some of the names that were very popular last year. All right? So look at the volume in that. Right, here's another one in the space. Now, I didn't trade this one, but a few Tribeca Trade Group members traded it because I already had enough exposure in this space. But here's another example. Look at the volume. Right? Is that confirming this move? You better believe it is. This big volume after earnings. Buyers coming in. Okay, I got long Emerson. Right, yesterday. Look at the volume. Look at the breakout. Something's going on here. Right, so a couple other names that worked for me very well. Today, TJX got a nice move today, so I took some profits in that one. I was long XLE, so I got long some energy a couple days ago, so that worked pretty well too. Yeah, and there's a lot of good-looking setups in energy. This does happen when a group goes up a lot. But, this XOP, want to take a shot at this, right? here's your stop, 83 bucks, not that far away. Maybe this thing could start to really move, because look at where this was all the way back here, right? It is retracing some of those levels. Now again, remember how long this took for energy. Rally, fade, then there was kind of a change in tone here. Rallied up to here, took out a VPOC. That's basically as far as it went for a bit, but this thing looks very interesting to me. All right, so here's my trades. We also, I talked about this. I was on Benzinga for a little bit today. I talked about how tech is making a new high, but not the tech that everybody is interested in. Tech with dividends. Right, this is TDIV, TDIV, tech with dividends, making a new high today. Right, so if you look at this group again, you could call it boring. You could call it not sexy, but profits are profits. Right? What did well in this thing? Wow, look at MSI. MSI was up 5.8% today. That one wasn't on my radar. Click had a nice day today, up 4.6%. Let's look at a couple of these names because I missed them. Wow, look at that. And look at the volume. All right, so that's Motorola Solutions. Whew. So yeah, I did not get that one. Click had a nice rebound, but still I think has to get above the 50-day moving average. All right, Dell. I decided to get out of this trade today. I was busy taking profits because I'm not sure if this thing can get above this. So I was busy. My plan today was taking profits. GDX, TSM, which I got out of. I positioned in this TSM yesterday. I didn't like how this thing finished down on the day. So I cut this position today. And we'll watch and monitor next week. Another name that I was watching in the group was Applied Materials. Again, finished off the highs in value. So I'll keep tabs on this one next week, as well as a few other semiconductors. But, I tried actually Levi's. That didn't work, so I got out of it. I picked the wrong one. Ralph Lauren, really strong. Right? This is a name that we've talked about heard me talk about it in one or two of these videos over the last week and a half. I tried that trade and bailed on it a few days back. What about copper? Right, another target for me. Breaking out, very strong. Right, if you don't want to chase FCX, because I've been taking profits here, you could look at Southern Copper. First day out of the value area, nice volume, very strong. What else? I talked about Mosaic already. I talked about TJX. FDX was another nice winner for me. I talked about how FedEx could basically catch up to what UPS was doing. Maybe some pin action off of UPS. Astounding, right? Right, boring little UPS goes from 179 bucks to 217. Amazing. Boring little Nucor, 80 bucks to 98. How impressive is that? So guys, here's Blunar. I got a target in this one too. I'll say this: if you are not a member of Tribeca Trade Group and you're struggling with this market a little bit, what I try to do is provide to tell people where the trends are. If you click here, right, you could get involved and you could be a member of Tribeca Trade Group. And it's not just me, right? We have a huge network of members who are doing an amazing job at pointing out setups. And, obviously I can't be in every position, but, members are pointing out some really good setups. This Jeffries looks pretty good. That was another one that somebody mentioned at the end of the day, but Just, we have a wonderful community of traders at Tribeca Trade Group, and it took a little while to kind of build that. But man, we've got some tremendous traders that are following things like this and coming up with their own setups and sharing them. Right, we're a sharing community. So if you've been struggling this year, last month, whatever, that's what I would suggest. Right, give us a try for a month, see if you like it, see if we can get you on the right path. And I think this year, I'll tell you, my performance, I was up 19% year to date at the end of April, and this week, obviously, I've had a positive week. So but this is a different year than last year, right? I was up 306%, I think it was last year, but I'm not looking to achieve those same results this year. It's you have to take what the market is giving you. Would I like to be up another 306% this year? Sure, I'd like to be up even more. But right now, I'm trading it differently because this is a different market than it was last year, right? And I think the sooner that you could accept that this year is different and make some adjustments, the faster that you can get on the right path. Okay, so that's how you can become a member of Tribeca Trade Group. Let's talk about, before we end the video, here's the performance for the week. SPY was up 1.2% for the week. Diamonds outperformed, right? Again, we talked about that in the Sunday macro member video. Qs finished down for the week. International markets were strong. Gold was strong for the week. Growth was down 1.4%, value up 3.4%. Just a huge move for some of these areas of the market. Oil services was up 19% for the week. XME metals and mining up 13%. Steel 11%. Gold miners up 9%. Straight up energy, XLE was up 8.6%. The builders were up over 5%. The financials were up over 4%. Industrials up 3.4%. What didn't perform? Solar got walloped, down 9.5%, as well as clean energy 8%. Blockchain stocks, interesting, even though cryptos are going up, some of the names that are involved in the process, blockchain names, were down 4.7%. The FANG stocks were down 4%. Chinese internet's down 4% as well. And again, this includes today's performance because some of these names actually did better. Did worse. Until today, basically. All right. There's also your international performance. Brazil had a big week, up 7% for the week. Russia, a lot of big commodity areas of the market did pretty well. All right, guys, that's it for today's video for the weekend. And if you're a member of Tribeca Trade Group, of course, we'll have more analysis out for you on Sunday. My thought was as well, selling into today's strength, and then looking up objectively at some new setups, going into the new week. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great week, and I'll see you guys on Monday.